Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 91. A, top of the page, with the words Alma Be'inan. Rava continues the report in their name. Apparently, we require the evaluation of the court in order to render him liable to pay for the damage. And with regard to this ox that killed, once the verdict was given that it is to be put to death, we do not delay the implementation of the verdict in order to wait for the evaluation of the court, and we do not delay its judgment. Therefore, the monetary case is not judged. And I, Rava, said to the sages of the school of Rav, even if you say that this halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, who does not require assessment by the court, one could explain that here we are dealing with a case where the owner of the ox fled, and the court cannot judge his case in his absence, and cannot render him liable to pay for the damage caused by his ox. The Gemara asks, if the Braita is discussing a case where the owner fled, then in the case where they did not yet judge it as a case of capital law, how does the court judge it as a case of monetary law without the owner of the ox being present? The Gemara answers, the Braita is discussing a case where the court accepted the testimony of the witnesses in the presence of the owner, and he subsequently fled. The Gemara asks, ultimately, from where are the damages paid in a situation where the owner fled, as he is not here to pay the damages? The Gemara answers, they are paid from plowing. The ox is rented out to plow fields, and the fees generated are used to pay the damages. Afterward, the ox is judged for the killing as a case of capital law. The Gemara asks, if so, with regard to an innocuous ox, why did the Braita rule that the court does not judge it as a case of monetary law? The court should judge it as a case of monetary law first, and the damages will be paid from fees generated from renting out the animal for plowing. And then the court should judge it as a case of capital law. Rav Mari, son of Rav Kahana, said in answer to his last question, that is to say that the money gained for plowing is considered like the superior quality property of its owner. In other words, that money is like the rest of the owner's estate and is not considered to be part of the value of the ox itself, since payment for damage caused by an innocuous ox is taken only from the value of the ox itself. It follows that money received from renting out the ox to plow cannot be used to pay damages. In connection with the ruling of the Braita that the court must assess whether the death can be attributed directly to the action of the assailant, the Gemara notes a dilemma was raised before the sages. Is there an evaluation performed with regards to damage as well, to determine whether the act was sufficient to inflict that damage, or is there no evaluation performed with regard to damage? Do we say that specifically in a case of killing is where we perform an evaluation? The assessment is to determine whether a soul departs with this assault and the assailant will be held liable, or whether a soul doesn't depart with this assault and the death is attributed to other factors. But in case of damage, perhaps we say that he is liable for whatever caused the damage, or perhaps there is no difference between the two. And with regard to damage as well, the court evaluates whether the act was sufficient to inflict that damage, and if it was not, he will be exempt. The Gemara says, come in here, a proof from what was taught in the Mishnah 50b concerning the halachot of a pit. Just as a pit that has sufficient depth to cause death when falling into it at least 10 handbreadths deep, so too any other excavations that have sufficient depth to cause death may be no less than 10 handbreadths. If any of the types of evacuations were less than 10 handbreadths deep, and an ox or donkey fell into one of them and died, the digger of the excavation is exempt, but if it was injured in it but did not die, he is liable to pay damages. I think we'll stop here for now. Part 1.